Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Covenant Cast. I'm Zach.
And I'm Steven.
And I'm Jonathan.
And today we're talking about our history.
My files are so
They're all
disorganized.
disorganized.
Right
First of all, welcome back.
Yeah, welcome
hey,
back.
it's been a
Back
while.
from the break. At the end of last year, we asked the question, favorite tabletop moment from 2017. We'd like to kick off episodes by reading some answers from the previous episode. And so we're going to do just that. We're going to start with Steve and reading an answer from Alan Jones.
All right, Alan, longtime listener, longtime commenter, and longtime person that I met at Gen Con and elsewhere.
Wow.
So always happy to
The
see
big
Alan
three.
on the sheet here. I propose that the greatest tabletop memory of the year goes to the Oots Bonsai from Gen Con 2017. It would be the last official use of the chant, and it went out with an emotional bang. Couldn't agree more with the sentiment there because Steve Horvath, longtime L5R player,
Big L5R player.
L5R
Names on
big-
like list in magazines
before
from back
FFG
in the
was
day.
even a thought.
And now he's like head of marketing for Asmodee.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he's come a long way, and then he gets to oversee the release of L5R, a game that I know is probably the most personally invested game that he, I presume, had ever been in at the time. And then he leads the chant, and it's in honor of a friend who had passed away, I think.
Yeah, he dedicated it to a friend who recently passed.
An L5R player from the store and that
And
whole community.
Steve's not known for his boisterous emotions.
No, he's
But
usually
he was-
pretty buttoned up.
He had a single manly tear going down his
It
cheek
was-
as he let it. It was very,
Well,
very nice.
It was pretty beautiful.
Quite a
yeah.
moment because you had hundreds of L5R players, dedicating this chant to a friend that passed. So it was really touching. It was
And
nice.
the game.
And the new game coming out and the excitement. And all
But I
that.
mean, you want to talk about, gaming communities. That particular community for Steve was the one that really brought him in, and the one that he met all of his friends there. A lot of those guys still communicated and were very close. And so it's just really cool for him to be able to honor his old friends that he met through the gaming community and then see all these people out in front of him who were at that very moment making new friends. in that
Yeah,
gaming
well,
community.
and considering assumedly how much of role games have played in his life, and then seeing all these people that are now getting to experience it over a game that his company's getting to help, make these connections and whatnot. So it's all the
Poetic.
mean just
Yeah,
layered in
it's
right there is
beautiful.
pretty powerful.
And it was like truly one of the last ones, because then they canned it.
See you later.
That's a different part.
Yeah, so.
All right.
All right, so this is from old Drayton Gantz. I don't know if I'm saying his name right because I
Gantz.
can't pronounce all of the letters.
We
right
also
now.
need to just so we were supposed to record this podcast last week,
Yes.
but I was out sick with a cold.
Yeah.
That I'm now kind of 99% recovered from, but Zach is fighting one off, and you're now.
I'm on the tail end.
Right
of
on
one,
the end
but
of
I'm
one.
right on the end.
We're all recovering,
So
basically.
sorry.
So
sorry
yeah,
for the
sorry that
audio.
we all sound
Yeah, but
weird.
we last week, so I posted a picture on our social things, our social networks, and the response was like, "Oh man, not another week." So now we're just kind of bearing through the sickness to not
Yeah.
have to skip another week.
I
So sorry about the
drove in
voices
today
and the
just for that,
coughing
rolled
and
out
the
of
sniffling.
bed. Yeah. Anyhow, so Drayton, he's a local guy here, and he says my favorite tabletop moment from this year was actually my first L5R game. The reason for this is because it was the first time since The Spoils, the game that first brought me to Covenant, and a game that one of the first games that brought me to Covenant as well.
It was the game that
Me personally,
It
and
was
brought
a
my
game that I
wife. It was the
loved.
first game that my wife played.
I remember that you
Yeah.
guys were drafting and stuff.
We were
That's
drafting.
great.
We actually went out to camp at the Grand Canyon and brought our decks to draft, and it was fantastic.
That's
Then we
awesome.
stopped carrying it, and well, that's another story.
Well, the game
So then I found myself excited to be playing. That wasn't The Spoils. I felt amazing to be experiencing this new game and being so hyped for whatever the future held. P.S. Scorpion Clan for life.
Boo.
But if he's a Spoils player, that kind of makes sense. That's
Yeah,
makes
that
you
is
wanna-
true.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I love the feeling of that. I'm into a new game and like this is the one. Like this is the horse I'm gonna ride.
You kind of had that moment with L5R too.
Yeah.
I remember after you played your first game, you came back to us and you were on this like high. which
Oh
is
yeah,
cool.
it's super great. And then I just missed the train. I didn't get my
Yeah, you
decks in
didn't
time.
board. You didn't get your ticket. I talked to Drayton in the store quite a bit about this exact thing when he had expressed this kind of a thought to me as I was walking out. That this was the first thing that was like every game that he'd played since The Spoils was like, I get it. Like this is a good game, but like it's just not the
Didn't
thing.
hook them the same.
But then apparently L5R really felt very much like it was the thing that was comparable, and that's great. And see, because for me, I think Netrunner is the thing that got me past probably the spoils as well, because I was hugely into Netrunner, and Thrones kind of had it, I was into it, but it felt a little bit different. And so now Netrunner is the benchmark, and I haven't found anything that compares to Netrunner. Destiny's kind of close, but
Netrunner's back up on the wagon.
Yeah, it's still going. Yeah, it's great.
So you don't have to worry about that.
You don't have to.
Yeah, spoils. I used to come in and play drafts when we first had the opening of the store, which we'll probably maybe get into, maybe not. But that was the one game I devoted a ton of time, actual deck building, actual kind of stuff. Everything else, it's ever since then, it's been the old the cobbler's son has no shoes kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is nothing like finding your next game when you really find it. That is a feeling that I think we've all had, and even with you, like Destiny kind of feels like a Monpoc probably, where it's like you're into it and it's excited, but spoils hooked you, and then Netrunner hooked you. So that is a great feeling when you find the game that you feel like has hooked you. And
to be at the very opening, like he says here, to see whatever the future holds, knowing that there's this great, this vast unknown that you get to explore. It's fantastic.
Yeah. All right, my comment comes from Billy Fellon, longtime listener of the show. He says, my favorite tabletop game memory of this year was the road trips I got to take with friends in the Destiny community to the various store championships, regionals, and nationals like Nova. The community building, bonding, and just straight up fun we had on these trips, regardless of our success or lack thereof. And I think that's another one of the best parts of tabletop gaming in general. The trips we've been on, we'll be covering some of those today, whether it's Gen Con or nationals or even just a regional. I went to one of those this weekend.
Are you going to keep going with this comment too?
This comment?
Yeah. You stopped it, and I just wanted to keep going because I think the other part is also equally as necessary.
All right, well, I'll read the other half. So second on that list was actually this past Saturday, been a few weeks now, when I participated in the Arkham Invocation event at my local game store. 3 of my friends and I began an Arkham campaign, the feeling of going through 2 tough scenarios and with 3 good friends, 2 of which were basically brand new to the game, with decks they were borrowing from me, is so unique and so much fun. Can't wait to continue the campaign and delve deeper into the campaign.
It's a great two-sided coin to different kind of ways to experience the connection of tabletop games, right? You have one that is like kind of that training montage and getting together, playing maybe weekly, and then going so far as to travel to events out of state, out of town, where you and your friends who are all kind of trying to do pretty well in an event and go out and meet people, have a great time, and compete right at a tournament or something. And then the other is this beautiful cooperative connection that happens where you have 3 friends, 2 friends, 1 friend that are sitting in either a store or a living room or a coffee shop and might do that for the next 20 years, whether it's a role-playing group or an Arkham event or those kinds of things. You're not traveling to big fancy tournaments, but you're having this like constant contact with this group of people and exploring challenges together. And there's something about that. It's very similar to like on the challenge course, we have the highs, like the ropes and all of that, and then you have the lows, which is just a lot of team building and working through challenges and problems together. And that's really what a lot of these cooperative games bring to the table. It's just you and your friends solving a problem together. And there's something that really bonds people together in that kind of a moment.
Well, and I think that's what's cool about both of these, where you have the competitive and cooperative element. And in both cases, he's not talking about, I got the trophy, I won the buy. It's the road trips with friends, the memories that we made, the people that we met. And so it really continues just highlighting one of the best parts of tabletop gaming are those connections that are formed across the table. So it's definitely, when I look back at my favorite moments from our history, the connections are always the highlights. I mean, you can talk about the product releases and the web updates and the big fancy stuff, but it always comes back to those stories and the people you've met and the people you see at these events. So quick dive real quick into anything notable from the week. I want to give a shout out, a very important shout out to Claire Walker. She is one of our listeners, one of our viewers.
Thank you, Claire.
She sent a care package to us with a very thoughtful gift for each person on the team. And so just wanted to say thanks. That was really cool.
That was awesome.
I loved my My Little Pony deck box. I use My Little Pony for some reason on the cast a lot as an example. It's like whether it's the My Little Pony game or whatever.
Don't you have a niece or
isn't she really? I have 2 nieces that are all about My Little Pony. But then there's also the My Little Pony card game.
Yes.
Which is something I would never personally consider playing, but it's just an example of something way out there for me, right? When we're always talking about Destiny or Netrunner or X-Wing. as a kind of wide-reaching game, to use an example. But it was very thoughtful
Could
because
also be great.
It was clever.
That's the weird thing. Sometimes those games are just like phenomenally
Yeah,
good.
just kind of
It
sneaking
could
around.
be great.
Right there.
Yeah. Not to,
Actually,
but thank you.
yeah,
Thank you
very much, Claire.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
Anything besides being sick notable on your guys' radar this
Actually,
week?
being sick is notable because it. So first of all, I think Jonathan and I are in the same boat on this. There are various ways to approach illness ultimately, and it depends on your childhood, I think, and like your family,
A lot of it does, yeah.
and what's
lot
what's the
does,
expectation. Yeah, I know, right? It's like, well, at every turn,
Every psychologist watching is.
it's like you can either fight through it, be made to feel guilty about it, or embrace it.
Just give in.
And or love it. Like relax. Like just see, for us, for me, I won't talk for you, Jonathan, but I think it's similar. It's like whenever you were sick, you stayed home from school, and it was like everything is taken care of.
Yeah, you got a bell.
What you need to do is relax.
You got a bell?
We had a
You got a
bell.
bell.
We had a bell. You relax in your room or on the couch, which has a sheet on it, of course, to prevent the germs getting in the cushions there.
It's important.
And you're relaxing.
Sanity.
You get to watch the weirdest television you never get to see because it's daytime. It's
soap operas
weird,
and stuff.
right? And you have basically like mom or dad making awesome, like really chill food, like just bare bones pasta or like soups and stuff. And you're just kind of like essentially being waited on. And
This is great.
Yeah.
it's great because it's the moment when you can truly kind of not feel guilty about not doing something productive.
All of the
Because-
social pressure.
The most productive thing you can do is recover.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's even when I'm at my most relaxed, there is I'm sure a background program running that is like, you really could be doing any number of things to advance your own person in the world, right? Whether that's making more money or getting more exposure or, like learning a concept you didn't know. But when you're sick, it's just kind of like, I have every excuse to just not worry about anything, which is great, which means I did something that I never really do, which is watch a lot of movies. I never have been really a movie watcher.
Yeah.
But I ended up with doing a classic search of like the best movies on Netflix and this kind of stuff. And I stumbled upon this movie called Meek's Cutoff. And I'm a huge fan of Westerns. I'm a huge fan of Westerns for every reason, but especially because of the desolation and the, I've always been fascinated with like a lot of the campaigns we run role playing is like you show up on a planet and there's 3 of you. What do you do?
Yeah.
Or like, there's
The
the New
unknown,
Land
looking
campaign.
into the unknown,
The unknown,
yeah.
the abyss even.
Yeah.
And it's just the expanse of unknowable nothingness. Which of course the modern Western really should be about that. I mean, that's what the problem and the fear and the just everything and the solution and the appeal of the West was all about the openness and the freedom to fail or succeed. And this Meek's Cutoff movie, it just struck me beautifully. So I would suggest to anybody interested in
Watch Meek's Cutoff.
a movie that is just quite simply, I think, artistically perfect. I would say Meek's Cutoff. For the Western,
That's saying a lot.
I mean, it's not. So Homesman is another incredible Western, but it has a lot more character development, a lot more opportunity for interaction and whatnot. Meek's is almost entirely atmospheric and just travel.
Nice.
And it's just a slow. It's the West in its truest form. It's not about the characters; it's about the West.
Have you seen Westworld
That's
yet?
incredible. No, I haven't. Sorry, Zach. So watch
No,
it.
you love Westerns.
I also made a great aloo gobi, which is potatoes and cauliflower. The first time I've nailed it in a real serious way. I made it and I was like, this is exactly the kind of meal I would get at India Palace here in Tulsa. And that's the first time that's happened. And I'm really thrilled with it.
All right.
Nice.
Some
That's
techniques
that's
in
quite a
there.
win.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
What about
Yeah,
you?
I've
Same story?
just been sick, and it's similar to what Steven has said. It's nice to just have all of that pressure off. I kind of short circuit it with wanting to better yourself because I just watch documentaries. Because when we grew up, where we grew up, we didn't have cable. And so, if after a while it was like either Ricky Lake or whatever was on PBS, in the middle of the day they showed like 1980s educational documentaries, and for some reason that and
explains
relaxation linked up in my mind. So I just crank the crazy documentaries and see what I can find. There's a really good one by old Sir David Attenborough called "Things That Glow."
Oh,
Something
nice.
like that, the glowing world.
That's
or
a small category.
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
but he does a
Bigger
really
than
good job with it.
Glow.
They have like new, and the cool thing is they had like they invented a camera just for this particular documentary. And so they talk about the camera in the second
That's
half
so
of the
good.
documentary. So it's perfect. It's like nature and then cameras. So I was very pleased. Other than that, I just laid in bed and it was
Alright.
great.
Short
It was
week.
absolutely
I'm also,
fantastic.
as an addendum, I am also reading Brave New World again, which I got
nice.
to do a lot of when I was sick. And it's like the end of the second or third chapter. I don't know if you guys remember it. Have you read Brave New World? Yeah, they have essentially like 3 or 4 scenes that you're getting one line from each scene stacked at the end of the chapter. I was just amazed at how well that worked as I was reading. I was like speeding up and it created this sense of just like, and they're like kind of mirroring the thought over here and her dialogue is mirroring that. And then there's the guy at the like hatchery who's mirroring this and you're seeing it all come together. And I was just amazed by the device that Huxley used and just like threw those lines in, and I was just like blown away by the end of it. I was like, oh my gosh, I just put the book away for a second.
It's a classic
that was
for a reason.
incredible. Oh, it's so good.
For a lot of reasons, probably. For me, I was sick a little bit and took the opposite approach, which you might imagine.
I'm glad you're the boss.
I went to a Destiny regional in Dallas on Saturday.
It's a good way to get well.
And then, well, I wasn't sick yet, but halfway through, I started getting hot. And there's a lot of people in there, right? And it's also warmer climate down there.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like I feel the inside of my nose just start like swelling up almost.
Yeah.
And it's getting harder to breathe. By the end of that tournament, it's like my throat's itchy and like I'm like, oh man, no. And I thought I caught whatever you had, and maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But then I get home and I'm sick, and it's like, oh.
You also top forward, worth noting, which is cool.
Yeah, I did.
by
With
the way.
Han Ray, by
And
the way.
our local guy won it.
Yeah, so Eric.
Same guy that won was it Destiny Weekend?
Yeah, with Padawans.
With
And,
Padawans.
Yeah, he won with Padawans at Destiny Weekend. People were like, that can't be
Must
good.
be a fluke.
That must be a fluke. And then now he's winning with Padawans again, and people are like, this might be real. Yeah, he actually knocked me out of the tournament. He's a great player, great guy. I couldn't be happier for him. Another local, actually, Mark, also got top 4. So it was a pretty
good. And
pretty
Mark's great
Tulsa.
at like teaching new players in the store too.
Always a
so-
friendly face, ready to play the new person.
Love
It's
it.
great.
I love it.
But yeah, it was a great weekend. But kind of, got sick, and then instead of just doing nothing, I was like, maybe I should build 8 more Destiny decks. So I spent Sunday doing that, and then have just been like medicine, sleep, water, medicine, work, and just
Wow, the new
beating it.
paradigm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well-
Startup Zach over here.
Well, it's like
Microdose LSD.
we missed
while
last
you're at it.
week, and it's like I just can't. We've been filming all day today to catch up. We're doing the Learning Destiny series, and it's like I can't just sit out. So I'm feeling a lot better now. I'm dealing with some. You can hear it probably in my voice a little bit, but otherwise feeling great.
It'll probably actually
a lot
come
of
out.
caffeine. I'll probably pass out tonight. Side note. All right, so let's dive in. Jeremy Springer left a comment. And I'm going to read this as kind of kick off the episode. It's kind of the inspiration for this whole
Yeah,
episode.
we didn't just decide to do it. It is our 11th anniversary.
Yeah, so that technically we started January 1st, 2007 as the website went up. So we turned 11.
The very, very first website.
Can you believe it's 11 years? I was
No.
19.
It's crazy. I was looking at some of the old videos today, and I couldn't believe all that was done in 2011.
If you'd have told me I was doing anything for 11 years in my life, I wouldn't have believed
That's
you.
crazy. It really doesn't seem like it.
So Jeremy left this comment, and I'm going to read it real quick. First time I heard of you guys was, I don't even know how many years ago, probably like 10 plus at this point. It was when Monpoc first had a big tournament at Gen Con. I also played HeroClix at the time and eventually went only HeroClix. I pretty much lost interest in your content, not because it was bad, just because I was only HeroClix. Fast forward all these years later, and I've gotten into LCG games, Netrunner, Conquest, now L5R and Destiny. So I'm obviously back into your content. Great stuff. Thank you.
Good to know.
And he says, my question, things have seemed to have evolved. Back then, it felt like y'all were doing more videos of actual game coverage. Looks like you have an actual physical store now. Might be involved behind the scenes with FFG, question mark. Other changes. Just curious if y'all would ever do a podcast or video covering the history of Team Covenant. Here we are. I'd super love to hear that. And obviously, as I've missed 8+ years of it all, also, change is great. If y'all hadn't involved in those years, I probably wouldn't be asking this question. Hashtag Ask Covenant, which is how you can get your questions answered on the show.
well-written
Great
question, too.
Yeah, so a lot of
Goodness
questions.
gracious.
And before we dive in here, so basically the framework of how we're going to be doing this is I'm going to be going back through year by year and talking about some of the bigger things the company did, whether it's product launches or website updates or service launches or employee hires, and as we go, the two of you and I are going to be interjecting stories from along the pathway, hopefully. But before I dive in, I am curious, off the top of your heads. Yeah, surprise. You guys love surprises. I learned that in 11 years. They don't love surprises. But it's a long story. Anyways, off the top of your head, what is the first memory that you have involving Covenant?
I know this.
All right, so John's ready. What do you got?
My first memory is I was driving Stephen home from the office where you guys worked for some reason.
Out of the back of my dad's old office, yeah.
Out of the back of your dad's old office. I don't remember what year it was. I don't remember why I was driving him home. It could have potentially been because he didn't have a car at that point or some other reason. I don't know. But he was real jazzed up, and he was telling me about this idea that you and him had for a game store where you could go in the back and watch video of your opponent, because Steven was a football player and he was into watching videos.
I played football.
He played football well.
That's a great way to say it.
But you do your research, you watch the tapes and stuff, and I was like, that's a really cool idea to film games, and then you could go back and prepare and watch your stuff, and have a brick and mortar. And this is when the .com thing was really just starting to happen. But still, the brick and mortar idea was really good.
Post-bubble bursting.
It was post-bubble bursting, yep. Best Buy was looking pretty good at that point, I think.
That puts a timeline
Comp USA was still in business.
The other thing that's worth noting is that YouTube.com was less than a year old at this point.
That's right. And you could only do 10-minute videos.
Yeah, I think it was less at that point.
Maybe less.
Anyways.
Whatever the DVD.
It was
Anyhow, so I remember that stuck with me. First of all, Steven's passion talking about it. Second of all, just the way that it conceived in my mind actually was a big reason for the videos that we did in the upcoming years after that. And that was the first inkling I got of what Covenant was, and the sort of disruptive nature of what it was kind of hoping to be with the whole Gaming Reborn notion, and really treating it seriously. And it's changed a little bit, our mission since then, but that was sort of the seed that began to grow the tree.
Started, yeah.
And I remember him telling me that on the way home from picking him up.
We had quite a kind of an ESPN thought there. I remember you had so many ideas after those kinds of conversations about things that could be done, and still to this day would be amazing, fascinating. Maybe we'll get to them.
Well, then that's one of the things that I think has been really cool is watching ideas that we've had, even when we were 11 years ago, when we were young and didn't know anything, be tried, potentially failed, refined, and then brought back out. You look at the Learning Series now, not to jump the gun on any of this stuff, but you look at the Learning Series now, that goes all the way back to the first video we ever put on the web.
Yeah, that's what's cool when you start walking it back. Is seeing, because a lot of times if you try something to fail, you might think, don't ever do that. Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about failure, because I think that's how you learn.
Even those abysmal Steven Speaks and Zach Yaks thing, I guess eventually became the podcast.
I should have put that on
when you think about it.
So
if you want to see me just get... We'll reach that subject.
First actual memory of Covenant. I have a hard time remembering which one came first, but there was the sharing of the spoils, and basically that phone call that was like, hey, I've got a game. And it was kind of like not that I actually know what this experience is like, but it's almost like getting a call from a drug dealer in a lot of ways, where it's like, hey, I've got this new game. Remember that last one we were hooked on? And, we spent a lot of our lives mastering, Star Wars TCG. And it's like, there's this new one, and I think it's really great. You should play it. And I was like, I don't got time for that.
Also, I'm just trying to think about, knowing myself, I'm surprised I called.
Yeah.
Just a random out of the blue call.
You were really amped about it.
Yeah.
You were spoilers.
I had to be on fire.
But then also, I remember that weird meeting we had at Starbucks. You remember that early meeting?
Well, that was
when
actually...
did that come from?
That was... We'll get to that. That was that was the meeting before actually getting incorporated.
Okay, so that was before 2007.
That was 2008 when we got incorporated.
Oh, right. So we had a year.
Yeah, we didn't get official.
Freewheeling.
It was Wild West before then.
But I remember that, and I remember it feeling like the first time I'd ever been involved in anything like that, ever. It was strange talking in those financial terms and a business and a company and all this kind of stuff. I was very freewheeling back then. I was not looking to be corporate.
And that whole thing.
I was wearing robes.
Very cool. That's funny.
Etc.
Well, yeah, those are pretty early movies. So for me, it's obviously hard to untangle where it starts and where it ends, I guess. Hopefully it
You
doesn't.
got a really good memory, though.
Well, I mean, just like, so for me, it goes all the way back. I was 8 or 9, and that's when I got into the Pokemon TCG. My uncle at the time had a movie rental business. We're from a small town, Chelsea, Oklahoma, less than 2,000 people, but he had the movie barn. And
Right on Main Street.
Right on Main, the only street.
Right on Main.
No, but I just remember, we didn't have a game store, and so my natural thing was, oh, well, like, let's start hosting tournaments, and he started stocking product, and I started running that. And that eventually led us to the Star Wars TCG. Which is when...
I'm sorry, just to clarify, roughly how old are you when you were in these Pokemon tournaments?
10.
The movie barn, 10. Okay.
Yeah, so, hosting tournaments, we were having 10 to 15 people every week show up to play Pokemon in this little small town, which is funny.
It's so much fun. Well, there wasn't a lot to... That's kind of one of the good things about small towns sometimes is your options are often somewhat limited in terms
And most
of
of the times they
entertainment.
really involve somebody else.
And Pokemon was so big then.
Yeah, it
and
was
just as a franchise, I saw the Game Boy and
Yeah, I was doing Pokemon battles at lunch.
Yep, that's right.
I won them too.
I won them. So that eventually led us to the Star Wars TCG, hosting tournaments. That's where we really started. That's when we started like play testing together and going to tournaments and that whole thing.
Which is where Team Covenant came from.
Ultimately,
yeah.
eventually.
So we had a guy in the group named Jason who very much has like the typical like Oklahoma accent, right? And so instead of saying can't, he'd say can't.
Yeah.
And so
You can't do that.
We'd go up to tournaments on Wednesday nights in Tulsa for Star Wars TCG, and we'd ride together, and it'd be like Jason and Steven and me and like Philip.
He was the only one who could drive.
Yeah, because we were all, I was like 13 or 14 at the time. And he would always, someone would do something, and he'd be like, you can't do that. And so they started calling the group of us that would come together Team Can't. And so, we grew up friends, and that's really where we met. I mean, we were in a small enough town that I had met you beforehand, but it'd be like at some random function, not like
Because you were
We were in band together, all of us, too.
in band together.
true,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's when I really interacted
that's
with
true,
you,
yeah,
quite a
good
bit.
point.
You and Jared at the time.
Yeah.
And so then, we kind of go our ways. You graduated a year before me. You graduated a couple years before me. And then I went to college. In college, I was computer science with a business minor, ended up switching to a business major. We'd grown up at that point, going to some game stores locally in Tulsa. And then I had ordered some stuff online from an online retailer. And they just sent me the wrong things, and their customer service was very unfriendly. And there was a lot of energy at the time because I was young and didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how much I didn't know what I was doing.
That young energy, it's worth a lot, actually.
And so from that kind of spun out, business major, computer science major, taking web classes, and it was like, I can do this. So I had $300 at the time, bought some spoils inventory at MSRP, mind you, bought packs, opened them up, started a website, had $50 for hosting. I was like, I'm going to see if I can do this. Like, can I sell stuff?
And it's important to note, too, that this was back when online business was the Wild West still.
Yeah.
I mean, you were giving money to strangers and hoping things worked out.
eBay was probably the biggest online retailer. Amazon hadn't really come
PayPal
into
had come around,
primacy.
right?
PayPal was definitely around. I think that was in 2000 or 2001.
So you could succeed as an online business by doing the bare bones, what we consider now the necessities. Take the money, order the products, ship them, and everyone's like, oh, wow.
5 stars, A++++.
A++. This guy didn't just take the money, and could have, and just
Decided
didn't.
not to.
Yeah, and I mean, so that's why PayPal was so big. And we actually ended up on eBay had a platform called Pro Stores. And so you could pay $50. It was your hosting. They had a shopping cart that you could do. You could add singles. But it was one by one, manually creating products for every card, opening packs, counting the singles, listing them on the store. And so my goal with the whole thing was kind of twofold, which is I think that this can be done way better, right? I can ship people what they order, and they can actually get it. And if I'm wrong, if I send you the wrong thing, I can send you the right thing and know what you're talking about. Because when I had emailed the people I bought those singles from, they were like, what's the spoils? It's like, you sold me these singles. How do you not know? And the thing they wanted me to do was they wanted me to send back the wrong stuff with a physical list of what I should have been sent and instructions, so that when whoever got it on their end would know what to do once they got it to send me the right thing. And I eventually got those cards several weeks later, but I ordered them for a tournament that was upcoming, so I had to run a crappy deck at a tournament. And then the store experience that I went to wasn't great, and I was just like, no one cares about this.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even that they're not doing this better, it's just that they just don't care.
Yeah.
And for me, I love these games, and some of my best friends and best moments of my life came from them, so it was just like a total lack of respect.
It was a feeling of being disrespected.
I was going
wasn't
to
it?
say, did you feel exploited? Would you use that word? Like they were just taking your money and they didn't really care about, I mean, like you were talking about the drug analogy before. It's like they just treat you like an addict. Like, give him something, he'll be fine.
Yeah,
and
I
we'll
think
deal with him later.
it
He'll
always
play
felt,
here no matter
even
what.
when we were playing the Star Wars TCG or Pokemon, when I would go up to Tulsa sometimes, my brother Daniel would drive me so I could go to these tournaments. And I was always playing not Magic or not 40K as an example. And so I just remember distinctly going to Pokemon events, and then like when it was time for Magic, we got kicked off the tables. And so it just kept feeling like if you weren't buying this mainline game, and even the people that were buying Magic, it's like, they just don't care. It's like, you're the only person selling this online, so like.
Think about it too. I mean, this was before you had any kind of social networking going on, aside from maybe a forum that you stumble upon that's worldwide.
Rebel Basers.
Rebel Basers, yeah. So if you wanted to find people to play with, there was no option except get your friends involved and or go to the local store. And that's where a lot of that kind of support your local store mentality came from, because that was literally the only place to find somebody to play a game with.
Yeah.
And that was a really important function at the time.
Yeah.
So that was, that's different than it is now. And that was a huge, huge deal. We would drive to Tulsa and be like, oh my gosh, there are random people playing the same game as us.
This is great.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a
And
magic
so,
place.
Started the site, there was that just like aiming to do it better. Ultimately, right? Because it felt like no one cared. And then also, the realistic goal was I need to at least make $50 a month to pay for hosting to keep this going. But my, the thinking was like, I'm in college, I don't have much money. I had $300, $350 technically.
Now you had zero.
Well, now I had zero. I had sports products. But worst case scenario, right, I had the sports product I was going to buy anyway. And best case scenario, I would make enough money to pay for hosting, and basically, if I could make my $300 back, I would still have cards to play with, right? Because you wouldn't sell all the stuff; you'd just sell the stuff people wanted. And then got to the end of the month, right, and had $600 or $700, and still had cards left, so I could pay for hosting, I could buy more inventory, and started cycling that, right? And so, also at the time, back then, it seems funny now, but the idea of blogging was super new in the world.
Yeah, that's when, what was it? Oh,
Zanga?
gosh, Zanga, yeah.
Zanga was
Steven used to write on Zanga. Remember that?
Man, I blew Zanga up.
I
You
was
did. You were-
letting people know.
Yeah.
Man, I expressed myself as Zanga.
Yeah, so
It's crazy.
Very quickly,
Still up.
that's
bags.
We'd transitioned in the Star Wars TCG to make it cooler into the Team Covenant kind of thing. So I just obviously called it Covenant, and then when I started blogging, I bought teamcovenant.com because we set it up as a separate site at the time on a very early version of like WordPress. And then started, there was like Joey Leak, who had won the Star Wars TCG World Championships, was into the spoils. So I started giving him store credit to start writing, and started adding some authors, and we started blogging. And this whole idea of like, we're adding blogs to the community. Now people know that we're selling singles, and you kind of start seeing the seeds of some things that are going on.
Content marketing over here.
Yeah, but also, so then that summer, that's when I called Steven and was like, hey, there's this new game you should check out. Called The Spoils, and he's like, I don't know if I have time, and I can't really, spend money on a collectible game right now. And I was like, oh, I've got cards, because obviously we're selling singles. And so he came and checked it out, and he loved it, and I thought it was awesome. So we camped out in my dad had an office in the small town right across the street from the movie barn, and a bunch of extra space. So we started, mostly playing, but also shipping orders when we were getting them and stuff.
I had to make the big sacrifice that was giving up my landscaping job.
Yeah,
Really,
you were
tough to
really
do.
dark. You were really dark at
Really
the time. I remember
tough to
from
do.
being
Yeah,
outside.
I was as tan as I've ever been, man, and probably strong as I've ever been.
Digging those
Also
ditches.
miserable. I mean, when the work was happening, it was just like it was misery. But you felt accomplished afterwards.
Yeah,
Manual labor has its
it does have
place,
its benefits.
Has its
for
ups.
sure.
So,
I liked it, yeah.
Also notable from that, so we started the web store, started the blog. Steven got involved, and we were in the office. And Tim also that summer too was around helping ship, playing some
I
stuff.
think I was writing a blog for you guys at some point. Mulligan 9 was the name of it. I don't remember what
It
version
totally
of this.
was.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I think we actually get to that in a
Okay,
second.
all right.
So
Mulligan 9.
then something else happened that was kind of a big deal for me, at least, which was we went to our first Gen Con that year. And that was me, you, and Will in my old 94 Grand Prix. And we literally went to Gen Con.
One second. It's also worth noting, anyone who's never met Zach or seen Zach roll up to a tournament, Zach's never been known to have cars that function, especially in the door handle area. It's just like, I think this is the
My
first...
cars?
Yeah, this car is the first car you've ever had that like has functioning accessories.
The Grand Prix?
The Grand Prix was a monster.
So here's the thing. So I got gifted a 96 Dodge Neon when I turned 16. That was crappy. But then that got replaced with the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And I drove the Grand Prix for over a decade.
Yeah, but I mean, that says nothing about how the door handles work.
They worked at the time.
You had to open the back right so the front
I
one
do
would
feel
open.
like you had to put in a code to
Yeah,
get in that car.
there was a certain, it was like putting the
had to
Konami
touch the
code
hood
in.
and-
Well, dude, you know.
It got us there.
But it got us
We
there, yeah.
got there. It's really great determination. Because
That's right. It's got 4 wheels. That's all that matters.
we'll go into the Grand Prix in a minute. Drove that thing for over a decade for a good reason.
Because it kept going forward.
Well, yeah. And
Started
what else
and
are you going to do? Anyways, so we went to Gen Con, which was a big deal, and we literally just played Spoils the whole time.
Yeah, played Spoils, ate Chinese food. We've talked about that
I learned
before.
about Chinese. Talked about that in the cast. But that was cool because we got to kind of experience the community. Then we all went back to college. I was shipping stuff out of my dorm room again. We were still writing and blogging. You were a good writer, and so we were both kind of doing the blogging thing and whatnot. But then, you movve kind of advanced to 2008. That was during that spring is when we were still moving enough that we were like, hey, we need to be an official business because it was tax time. So we got incorporated, had shares, did this whole thing.
Things are going pretty good at this point.
Yeah,
Two young eyes.
Well, I mean,
everything's
the business
gung-ho.
model was non-existent, though, wasn't it? It's like, we'll keep selling spoils, and what could go wrong was essentially the...
I mean, it's
Well, at this
writing
point-
content and selling spoils.
And if you win a spoils tournament, you get a ton of money.
That's
that
really
is
true.
true,
They're
yeah.
cashing out on the
Yeah, you
tournaments.
get a ton of money.
You get promised a ton of money. That's why I kept driving the Grand Prix, because I didn't ever actually get the money. But in 2008, so then we come back off the summer, and I remember the thing that happened here is not only did we get incorporated, this is where the phoenix in the shape of a spade first came about, and that's where the slogan Gaming Reborn.
And that
Remember
came
the
from
picture?
a spoils artist.
Yeah,
right?
which you just contacted
Chris,
spoils
Chris
artist.
Tapoya, he's done actually all of the
All the
versions of our
logos.
logos. That may be changing in the near future, but so we did
did
the
a great
logo,
job
and
so far.
that's where we became official, and the idea became more than just selling spoil singles, right? It was Gaming Reborn. It was this big concept that we want to go revolutionize tabletop gaming.
All of it.
All of it.
Every last drop. Now, this happened before or after Spoils completely folded, leaving you with nothing to sell?
Well, that's later in the story. Yeah. So
We'll reform the whole industry then.
So we're back in the office, right? And this is where you actually enter the picture.
Yes.
This is probably when you were giving Steven a ride, and this whole summer we're ready to add new games, basically, right? We want to expand, we want to do things, and
Do the same thing for spoils for more games.
Yeah.
Make more money.
and what we had one of the games we played historically was the old Dragon Ball TCG by who was Score, I think, was
Yeah.
or just I don't remember who it was, but there was a new Dragon Ball game coming out by Bandai, and we were waiting on it all summer, and we got the starters in, and then YouTube was young, by the way. So this is 2008. YouTube started, I think, 2006, and so it's still very, very new. But you're in the picture. We start talking about, like there's this ESPN of gaming kind of thing going on. We could do these tutorials. We could
You
teach
came out
people
of
how to
college
play.
with your video.
I came out of college, I had done screen studies, and then I had bought a camera because I was doing a ton of freelance work and also working at a news station. So I had the equipment
the
and
camcorder.
the skill.
And we had the know-how with the games.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bada
So
bing,
Dragon
bada
Ball Z
boom.
tutorial still on YouTube. You can check that out. Young versions of all of us.
Yeah.
Young editing from
that
Joe.
was with my very first camera on my very first computer.
Final Cut?
Final Cut Pro, which I had gotten. It was the academic version of
Yeah,
it.
of course.
And there were so many effects that I had just been doing that I actually had to mute which means turn off all the video tracks and just go by numbers to try to get.
So you had to edit a video without seeing it.
Yeah, it was like 26 layers of video tracks, something ridiculous. Obviously I could have done it better. Now I know, but I made it happen. It happened, and then we put it up, and it looked all right.
Yeah.
we can only put. I would say it took months.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I had a vision, I wanted it to be like the World Series of Poker, ESPN,
Show the cards on the screen.
Show the cards on the screen, which is still happening. That's some of the cool stuff that we started doing, and then realized it was impossible, and then realized it wasn't impossible.
That's right. We figured it out. So 2008, I guess, not 2018. That's this year. We also didn't go to Gen Con. That's the year that Monster Apocalypse came out, which we'll play a little later. John was very interested. He was a big kaiju fan.
I had written 2 of my college papers, including my senior thesis, on Godzilla. So whenever this thing came out, it was like a game that I could play, and it was giant monsters. Oh, I was in. I was in.
So I actually ordered, when you wanted us to order it through our distribution so you could get a discount. I mean, it makes sense. And when I did that, I actually ordered some extras so that Tim and I could check it out. You know, it was miniatures. We were into collectible card games, so like that doesn't make sense for us, but I'll check it out.
It was a collectible miniatures game.
It was a collectible miniatures game.
And you didn't have to paint it. It came pre-painted,
which is
plastic
important,
figures.
and a grid map and stuff.
Yeah.
So we got that in. You took yours, and I remember playing it the first time, and luckily I got Sky Sentinel, a big robot, and I remember playing it. And I was just like, "This is awesome!
Great!
This is fantastic!
It was so much fun."
So we didn't go to Gen Con that year.
It was magic.
But yeah, it was.
It was so good.
It was a great game. So that was also the year that Spoils basically just stopped putting sets out.
Yeah.
And so we pivoted real hard, real quick to Monster Apocalypse.
Now, you were glossing over some of the gorier details.
Didn't we WoW
of this.
TCG it?
There was
WoW
WoW
Minis?
TCG. There was, what was that online card game?
Saga.
Saga.
Yeah, that was all this year, right?
Yeah, so basically Spoils stopped selling. OMG, we don't have a revenue stream anymore. We've got to, we were able to do it with Spoils pretty easily. We could do it with anything if we wanted to.
We had added those other games before Spoils stopped.
The tea leaves were speaking on Spoils.
So you had kind of, but come to find out, not everything was as easy as Spoils, or not everything is as easy to sell if you don't have a passion for it.
And there wasn't all that much out there at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about finding, we still, to this day, we're always looking. And it's like, for things to check the boxes, there's not a lot of games that can check all the boxes.
Yeah. So luckily Monpok came out, because without Monpok, it was, the WoW TCG didn't go anywhere. Saga
Not for us, it was
Dragon Ball
confusing.
card game, obviously.
Yeah, no one even noticed.
That game was bad.
Yeah, that was the other thing. After doing the tutorial, it's like, we're not sure this is any fun.
That's the first time we'd really been like, wait, there are really bad games out there.
Yeah, because before it's like we get a new game, it's like, this is great. There hadn't been that moment of like, you get in, you start selling it, and then it's like, I'm not excited or interested in this at all, because it's just not that great. But yeah, a lot of stuff happening there, right? A lot of fires burning.
Trying to make it work.
But that led us into 2009.
Pretty scrambly.
Which is, I mean, we had no idea what we were doing. But 2009, a lot of important stuff happened, right? So Monster Apocalypse was out. This is when we launched our first podcast. We started doing the Monster Apocalypse podcast. We recorded that over Skype.
We saw a lot of success with Monster Apocalypse almost immediately. I mean, it was crazy. We became the community. I mean, the community is always looking for a landing spot, right? And again, the internet still, it's not that new, or it's not that old, I should say. It's not that experienced.
I mean, 2008, it's like Facebook is a year or two old. Twitter is young. Yeah. MySpace is still popular. Like, it's a crazy place.
So where do you go to talk about Monster Apocalypse? And we ended up kind of becoming that space, writing articles and doing the podcasts. And
actually, going back to what we're talking about, Steve Horvath, is that the Monpok community is really the one that brought us into the, it was our maturity into a real gaming community, and it's people who we still stay in touch with and talk to this very day.
Yeah, and a lot of our attraction at that point, we did a thing called the Faction Pack. It's a collectible miniatures game, so random stuff would come out, and this is really when you got involved on another layer.
Yeah, the having to do stuff layer.
Yeah, you could just besides video. Yeah. So random stuff would come out, and it reminds me a lot now of like a Saga set or something where you could buy like the guard faction pack and get all the guard stuff from the new set. And I remember us at the old office, me, you, Dylan, and Tim, just opening, what we thought was an immense amount of product at the time, sorting them overnight. We got down at like 6 a.m. We go get donuts, which is still one of my favorite memories of you.
Well, you can tell I was living well under the poverty line at this point, and Zach's like, "Hey, we did it. We did the faction packs. You guys can get any donuts you want." And I was like, any donut?
Yeah.
Any amount?
You can eat a lot. And he ordered a ton, and then the total comes up, and it's like $8.76. And I'm like, yeah, any number you want. So we had donuts, and that was fun. And we went to. I remember we had a big box of boxes that we took down to the Chelsea post office on Saturday when they opened from 10 to 2. And that lady's face when she saw our huge box first thing Saturday morning. Priceless.
Was I there for the faction pack original? I don't think I was.
Think so. You were at college.
Here's one of the memories I have from that faction pack. So we were there at the very first office, which was in the back of Zach's dad's office, and we were pulling out all the things and organizing them. But then we had to sign each of the invoices individually, because this is a big thing that Zach wanted to do, is have us sign the invoices.
That's true.
And I remember I made some Murloc joke, because there was like a merman kind of a thing. Yeah. And someone wrote or contacted us in some way, and so it made them laugh out loud. And that was the first time I really thought, we're really like, we can have a positive effect on people. Like, what this little kind of more or less throwaway line, like, it actually brightened someone's day.
At that point, we were literally signing every invoice. And the faction pack was different because we had a whole bunch of invoices all at once.
Yeah.
But we still, all of us overnight as we're packing them up, we would sign it. And it wasn't just sign. It'd be like,
right.
here's a paragraph, a real paragraph.
Write a note about the army or the faction,
here's what
how
I
to play
think.
it.
Yeah, here's maybe you should try this.
You know, that really goes back to the roots where I had ordered and felt like the person on the other end didn't understand or care at all. Like, it had no meaning to them. And part of that, whether it was the blogging or our participation, was really like, we care, we play this game, we love this game, we want to build this community kind of a vibe. So anyways, then we go on,
from faction packs to army packs, right? Wait, what about the Monpog tutorial? When does that come in?
That's right where I'm getting at. So then we did our first gameplay tutorial, actually, or gameplay. We went to Gen Con that year. We filmed it. We took our cameras.
Yes.
We were going to film one game.
We
that
mean
was a
our
blend of
cameras.
And then, well, John's cameras. And then
a foreign concept, really.
Yeah.
that's when
filming
that was
a
the
game.
first
We were the first people to really film games at Gen Con.
I don't know. Are you sure Magic probably was doing it?
Yeah, there's no way.
But the first people who weren't Magic.
But we took our cameras and they were spoiling stuff at Gen Con, right?
Yes.
For Monster Apocalypse, and that was our first coverage of Gen Con. If you go back and look, there's people who aren't even on our company doing interviews for us, random fans.
You remember Terrence? So Terrence came in. Actually, Terrence is awesome. Terrence Miltner. So he was a Monpog fan, and we'd interact with him on the site, through the site. He left comments on the blogs, and we'd go back and forth. And then I think he had reached out, or somehow we got linked up, and he said, I'm going to be at Gen Con. I used to write for Scry Magazine, a couple of other like gamer publications. Do you have any like Monpog related work? I don't know how that all came about. But anyway, we brought a shirt for him.
Yeah.
First time meeting Terrence, and he comes up and he's like,
slapped the shirt on,
immediately
put him on
cool.
the camera.
Yeah.
He's just like, yo, what's going on, guys?
Opened some doors
He
for
literally
us.
threw the shirt on as he goes, and then starts like going and interviewing people.
Yeah.
And it was hugely.
It was awesome.
It was just like, man, great.
Another like just
How-
awesome dude that we met through gaming.
Awesome.
Terrence
Still
thing.
see Terrence every year.
At Adepticon,
Yeah.
and sometimes Gen Con. But so 2009, obviously we're getting the Gen Con feed under us. We're building a community. We have blogs going on the site. We're selling Monster Apocalypse. Another important note is that's when we actually officially hired Steven, started paying him peanuts.
That's also, by the way, whenever I was talking to Robert and his friend Ken at the time, they were very big contributors to Monster Apocalypse on the website, always leaving comments on blogs, had a very great mind for strategy. So I ended up starting talking to Robert on GChat about Monpog strategies, because I was trying to get these bad monsters to work. And Robert, of course, is like, these monsters are bad. And I was like, but how do we make them good? There must be a way. And that was kind of our first interaction. So we started talking to Robert at that time.
Yeah, I think that Gen Con's when we really met Ken, and then that led us to Robert.
Yeah, actually, Ken, I think, is on some of the videos doing the interviews.
Yeah.
Also the pandemic champion in the United States.
That's right.
That's
and
wild.
almost won Worlds, I think, with a pandemic this year.
That's crazy.
So that goes a long way.
But that led us to 2010, which was a pretty big year. So Steven started working for us that fall in 2019, and then that was our first official employee.
You remember the first pay conversation?
Oh man,
Where it was
a
like,
nightmare.
I think it was literally $650 a month.
No, it was less. I think it was like $500 a month plus a percentage.
There was
of
a
sales.
percentage of sales, and I was like, well, hot dog, then I'm going to get to selling, which was the
out.
intent,
Yeah.
right? But then we started selling more than was capable of actually, like, the numbers ceased to make sense because the numbers went up because of army packs, right?
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh,
that's coming
sweet, thousands of dollars coming my way, which is not anywhere close to the number. And then Zach's like, I think we need to change this. This calculus isn't quite working anymore. Like, we can't even.
Yeah.
There was, at some point between 2007 and 2010, when Steven got hired, there was a time whenever I was the one who was shipping the orders.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everyone
that-
had
Remember
the
that.
orders go through
Everyone
their
had their,
hands.
yeah, because I am not built for anything involving numbers whatsoever.
Yeah, because it kind of bounced around between me, you, and Tim for a while. Because he went to OSU off to college,
Yep.
and I was doing it, and then I got really busy at school.
Yep.
And so then I shipped it back home.
Because I was looking for anything to put some dollars in my
yeah,
pocket.
and then we started paying you a little bit to ship orders.
I was going freelance.
And then it was just it was
Yeah, well,
obnoxious.
the great thing about that is the problem. That's the time when we discovered that there was a bug in our system, in our sales system, that whenever
yeah.
anything would go out of stock, it would just stay at one continually instead of being like, you can't order. It's like, oh, no, you can order infinite. So we'd be getting these orders like, Zach, there's none of this in stock. He's like, oh, I don't know, why this keeps happening. Just, and so I would just basically, that's where the majority of my mom and pop collection went, is filling those orders that we didn't have stuff to fill for, but I knew I had one in my collection, so I would put it in and ship it on. And I was very happy to get that off.
And there's obviously so many stories built into these years that we're just not going to have time to cover.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
Yeah, we got to get.
We haven't even got to
dredge it up.
Haven't even got to the after Mon-Poc stuff.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Question.
So 2010 was big. Stevens hired. We launched army packs, and these were basically you choose a monster and a budget, and we will custom build an army every time you order.
There's a really great video
intermediate,
on that, by the way.
Which
I made during
around that
monster. It was
monster.
a great video.
And these went crazy, right? We made it as easy as possible to get into Monster Apocalypse as we could.
Mm-hmm. And it was solving a problem because that game released so poorly. The randomness and the starters were just so bad.
Not great up front. Yeah. And so that was a really big deal. That's also when we did the Monster Apocalypse tutorial, which was again helping people get into this
on
game.
DVD. Sold it on DVD.
That's right. I actually, man. So here's the story for that.
All right.
So we did the Mon-Poc tutorial. Yep. We made the Mon-Poc tutorial. It took me probably like 2 months to do. So when I was first learning After Effects, and I got it all done, and I got it all converted and ready to put on DVD, and it was like 12 minutes too long. I wanted to get everything in there 12 minutes. I literally went back. I deleted a couple big things, but I went back and took out every time someone said cut it. And eventually got it down to right where there was no space left on the thing.
The original we sent to the company to make the DVDs, and you could see how far it had used, and it went all the way to the edge.
It went all the way to the edge. Cool. I literally went through every single.
You can see it on the video. The banjo video, whatever it's called, tutorial done.
Yeah. Something like that.
Look for least viewed videos, and you'll find all of our old videos.
But we did the tutorial, which is cool because it kind of connects to our learning series now, and you see that evolving. But we also hosted MonCon, which is this small convention, 30-something people from across the states and some from Canada, Spaz and Wappy.
As Terrence actually said about MonCon, we had no idea that we couldn't do it.
Yeah. We were live streaming the top tables. We had shirts and
DC
mugs.
had come in.
Live commentary of the top tables, by the way.
What was that on Ustream?
It was on Ustream. Yeah, I was running cords from the top table into a secondary room where there's another monitor set up with notes that I was typing that Terrence was actually helping me with.
DC, who was the current Privateer Press, one of the designers for Mon-Poc and War Machine Hordes, and then Will Schick, who was also involved in that. I remember picking him up from the airport and talking to him in the car and taking him back. Were there, and so Privateer sent support for this convention, which is amazing. They said, hey, this is how Adepticon started. Yeah. It was just some War Machine fans getting together, so we're all in, which was great. And so then now DC's at Steamforged, and so we've kept up with DC the whole time, and even I think most everybody who came to that first MonCon, I still will see at conventions from time to time.
Yeah.
And some of them make a point. We still can communicate with email, and we talk a lot of Chicago crew, and we talk to everybody there. So
totally, and then. So we had MonCon, and that's actually where we launched the ability for our users to actually post blogs on our site.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is a big deal. Philip did a lot. Philip was a good friend of ours from high school, programmer.
Hard work.
Huge amount of work there. Yeah, it was hard.
work.
I remember we got to MonCon, I was like, hey, I have this idea to have this Cthulhu thing over the... It's like this weird programming request. And he spent the whole first day of MonCon
I can't believe he did
hacking it.
If I were asked for that now, I don't think I'd be told that it was possible.
Well, I wouldn't even ask for it.
Of course we wouldn't ask for it.
But anyways, we also, at that convention, we launched our first custom product. Besides Army Packs and Faction Packs, we did Covenant Dice, which were alternate dice to do for Monster Apocalypse.
Which was just it was just new icons with the Covenant symbol on one side.
Yeah. And the original dice were this plastic, and they wore
off.
That's right. These were burnt in.
They engraved and stuff. And then later in that year, we launched Mastering Monster Apocalypse,
which was a great series.
A blog challenge series that got a ton of people.
Just about killed Zach, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. That was the first thing, and that was a hugely productive content effort. 31 blogs, lessons, and all of it learning and teaching along the way.
Scaffold learning, all the stuff we're talking about now, we were doing then, we just didn't know we were doing.
Yeah, and I remember, so I used to spend Sundays, because I at this point, 2010, I had graduated with my master's, and I was actually working during the day, and then doing Covenant stuff in the evening, but I would spend Sundays, basically 10 hours on Sundays, writing, editing, proofing the blog for the next week. It would go up on Monday, Monster Monster Apocalypse, another M is Monday, and just rolled with that for 31 weeks in a row. And I remember when I got done, I was like, never again, because it was just brutal.
But it generated a ton of content.
But yeah, and so that built the community on the site, and we kind of lead to 2011, which is when a lot of stuff happens. This was a pretty big year for us. This is when we ended up hiring Robert. He came on right before MonCon 2011.
We moved out of Claremore into Tulsa.
Yeah, with Robert.
With
The intent was that all of us would move into the same house in Tulsa.
Steven, myself, Tim, and Robert all moved into the same house.
Again, hosted Monpoc again. We launched our first subscription service, which was our Monster Apocalypse
That's
maps.
right.
Can you believe that?
We made the maps. Robert and I used to make the maps in Excel, right? Excel, so it's the spreadsheet one, right?
Yeah.
It was
with the color codes.
With color codes, so the black cell would be like impassable, the blue cell would be water, and we make these maps, and we'd spend a couple of, and it was so much fun.
Yeah,
to make
think
these
about the
maps.
strategy
Spawn
and like
points,
go back
and it's like, well, an air avatar can go from here to here, so that's a little strong for the elementals. So we need to put a bush in the way and that kind of stuff. And we were trying to make them as balanced as possible, which that's the thing about Monster Apocalypse. Nothing was done according to balance. It had no bearing. It was all theme.
Yeah.
So we came in and we were actually considering it as players strategically, where should things be? And I think that turned out beautifully. We got all of the original assets done. Every single asset on that map was original. There's still people talking about, Private Check got mad at us for using their assets. We didn't use any of them. We had that one guy design all in 3D, all the assets, and then we could
completely
put them in on
custom.
Photoshop
And turn them around.
It took about an hour to load it.
Not only did we have the custom assets for the maps, we also produced a short story with every map.
Yeah,
And we had art from Sterling. I remember his name.
There was also a video for the first 2 maps, I believe.
Yeah, and so we went all out. But then it was like, this is a lot more work than we expected.
A lot of effort and not a lot of subscribers.
Yeah, I mean, there was a decent number, but it was nowhere near the effort.
But the story was affecting like how people won. If people won,
report your results.
Results were
that would affect the next story.
Yeah, it was pretty great. And then that year we went to Gen Con, and that's when we stumbled upon the Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings LCG.
Well.
And I remember back in like 2008 or 9, Game of Thrones rebooted, and I saw it in one of the Game Trade magazines we got, and I was like, this looks cool, but there's no way we could ever make a business around non-collectible games.
Yeah, we were all collectible.
All collectible. And then we were at this point really considering, we'd hired Robert kind of in advance of opening a physical location.
Because why not?
Because
we had the funding, right?
No. But ran into Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, and it was like, hey, these would make great products for our local store, like as just a local community, an option that's not collectible. It's a little less expensive for people to kind of dip their toe. Plus, I mean, this is before the Game of Thrones TV show, but Lord of the Rings is a big IP. It's familiar for people. Plus, they're great. They were just great games. So we picked those up, and that later...
Didn't Lewis Britton introduce us to one of those? Wasn't he a Lord of the Rings guy? Or was that a separate...
he introduced us to Puerto Rico.
That's true.
Yeah.
Whenever I think he came down to play Lord of the Rings with us, or Game of Thrones.
I think it was Game of Thrones.
Yeah. But I just remember getting a demo that was my first real interaction with FFG back in 2011, and getting the demo of Lord of the Rings first, because I love Lord of the Rings, and thinking, this is different. This is different than any game I've ever played. It's cooperative. It's this weird... It's very different.
Yeah, you and Robert, I think, were pretty sold. I didn't play it, so I was
really in on it.
What is this?
Yeah, which makes sense knowing Robert now.
Yeah.
But that's also later that year we launched our LCG subscription service for the first time on PayPal, and it was just not...
It was crazy.
I remember at the time, so I was like, this is obvious, right? It's like the easiest way to get into an LCG, right? You just want to automatically get the stuff when it comes out.
Right.
And FFG says that they're going to put a pack out every month. So PayPal is a service where people can sign up and just auto-be charged every month. And then we can just ship them the packs, and it'll be great.
Easy peasy.
And I remember the look on Robert's face where he was just like, and he was right, the number of things that can go wrong here are immense, and there's a lot of logistical considerations. And my thought at the time was, if we get so many people signed up that it becomes too much to manage, then we'll build a custom system.
Yeah. And Robert was also the one managing it.
Yeah.
And so the headaches are crazy. So you basically, I mean, depending on when you sign up. So let's say I sign up on the 8th of the month, then I'm going to get charged on the 8th of the month from then on out every month, and the pack might come out on the 23rd. So I basically have to get charged, which then Robert would mark that person as caught up, good to receive the pack. And then when the pack was on the 23rd, everyone who was on the spreadsheet as good, like ready to receive, would get packaged up, manual
marked as
address
a pack was
entry,
shipped, yeah.
manual everything, and then shipped out. But then, Zach, what happens whenever a pack doesn't come out and somebody gets charged the second time?
Well, then you have to manually go in and refund everybody.
Yeah.
And it was a nightmare, right? So we had this big spreadsheet with the addresses for people to manually, with it marked whether they had a pack charged and shipped, and it was a nightmare.
It's incredible that it worked. It's a testament to Robert, the way that his brain was able to put that all together and create a system that could actually manage that.
Yeah.
Because honestly, thinking about it from a customer's point of view, it's the worst thing imaginable. I just hope that they're refunding me appropriately because I'm getting charged every month, and then 2 days later, a refund on my card, right?
Yeah,
It's like, what?
And again, you start with 0 subscribers, you get to 10, and it's like, okay, like
That's 10 more packs than we were selling.
That's 10 packs, that's all right. But then, we'll talk about the evolution of that system. That's the same year we also signed the lease on the store, our first store that we had. About the time we signed the lease is when Monster Apocalypse and Spoils both officially were done.
Was it official for Mom Pop? Because there was literally years where
There was,
it was
it's
just
still,
silence.
I think it's still officially.
It wasn't official at that point.
It was
'Cause
just
when we opened the
silence.
store, we had a Mom Pop banner and a Mom Pop display because it wasn't officially done, but they had stopped putting stuff out. So
and
we
then
signed
said
a lease.
a word. God, that makes me
They
mad.
didn't say a word.
They didn't say a word about it.
And just, they had posted the Wave 6 preview, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it was like, hey,
The
these
last
are coming
wave
out.
of the cycle.
And then it's like they did the non-collectible 2-player starter, which was
an
great.
incredible step. Unbelievably
And
good.
then 2012, as we're going to open the store, they aren't putting anything out. We opened the store in 2012 in March. And
Do you remember the games?
we had War Machine, Monster Apocalypse, Spoils, Burning Wheel, Lord of the Rings, and Game of Thrones.
Yeah. 2 LCGs, role-playing game. War Machine really the only viable game at the time with like an actual player base that would make any kind of a difference.
Worth noting, every single ceiling tile in the old store was hand painted.
That's right.
We went through
by
that
us
process
and our
before we
significant
opened,
others.
and the significant others and friends.
Pole was hand painted too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or did we decide to? That was painted by the painters.
No, we
wasn't it?
painted. No painters. Painters didn't paint nothing.
Oh, that's right. We painted the whole
We painted
thing.
the walls too. Yeah, that was the. I mean,
that.
was a bad deal. I'm not going to talk about that on this episode because we'll get angry. But a lot of things happened that year that were pretty important to our history. So, Mom Pop and Spoils kind of officially go away.
We're certainly not making money off of them anymore.
Yeah, that Gen Con though is when we found the games that were released were X-Wing and Netrunner. And I remember almost overnight the X-Wing community. A lot of the Monster Apocalypse players went to X-Wing. And
Makes
so
sense.
we had this like blogging platform on the site, right? But X-Wing is like 1,000 times bigger than Monster Apocalypse. So overnight, our site just gets pounded.
Important to note too, Theorist, one of the most active bloggers on Earth on the site, was a Monpoc. Was a figure in the Monster Apocalypse community. You guys had a duel, essentially like at sundown kind of thing, because he said this monster could beat this monster, and you were like, it can't be done. And then you guys,
And then we had a Vassal.
you had a
online
Vassal
game.
online
Yeah.
duel, and people were watching, and the forums were blowing up, and everybody's building up to this. But Theorist has been around. He's been blogging from the very beginning.
And there was the theory that I was the theorist.
Yeah, we put out on one of our earliest podcasts way back in the day when we were still doing the Monster Apocalypse podcast. So this is not the first time we've even talked about
And
Theorists
finally
on our
met
podcast.
Jeff last year, right? At
I
Worlds?
think it was 2015 Worlds.
So he
cool.
he has written so much for us. He's done so much for us.
It's
Yeah, there's
crazy.
a ton of blogs that
His
went up on the
content was
site
some of
'cause
those
of that.
valuable stuff that ever got written.
So 2012, we opened the store, Netrunner and X-Wing come out. Both of those games were really big. Netrunner was the thing that really broke the subscriptions though, right? So X-Wing broke our online community. It didn't actually break it, but it pushed it because it wasn't built to handle that much traffic. And almost overnight, Jeff started blogging, Mr. Froggy, Scott was blogging, and all these people were blogging, and then all these people were coming to it, and that's how they were messaging to do these online tournaments and all this crazy stuff. So that created a problem for us. We didn't have the infrastructure to handle that.
No.
And then Netrunner, on the subscription side of things, we were posting, we did the Netrunner demo at Gen Con. It was very popular, the biggest LCG to date by far. And so we started getting a lot more subscribers.
Those
and
are the
that
Worlds
started-
games
yeah,
too.
those are the
where
Worlds
Jeremy's
games.
were. And
That started being a problem, right? Because we had a subscription troubles. So you can see some trouble brewing for us. We had to go through what is the part of the hero's journey?
The descent into the
descent,
underworld.
yeah. But in a good,
Unraveling.
ultimately positive way. That was also the first Worlds that year at FFG.
Wasn't
that
positive
had
at the
November.
time.
Yeah.
Never is,
We
I
trekked
think.
there. That's when they previewed the Star Wars LCG. And later in that year is when another important thing happened, which is we had our first unboxing. We did the Wave 2 preview.
That's right.
Slave 1, I was by myself with like way too much light from somewhere.
And the store in the background, right?
And the store in
There
the
are people
background,
in the background.
people and the noise.
Everybody
and
was
all
like,
that.
it's too loud. We hate you. This video sucks.
And so those events would really mark kind of a lot of things that were about to happen for us. As we advanced into 2013, Star Wars LCG releases, and then we hit our first Netrunner unboxing.
Now, I'm not involved in this Netrunner unboxing, which is the reason that I get involved in the rest of the Netrunner unboxing because it was bad.
Yeah, because we had the flip cam, right? This is
Yeah.
before the phones all had cameras.
It was
Yeah.
charming,
Shaky.
Jonathan. Charming.
You can watch it's the What Lies Ahead Netrunner unboxing if you really want to see the difference between what we're doing now. But
You see some haircuts too.
and
Between now
all
and
of
then.
this is kind of leading to the next things that happen, which is Jonathan and Tim, employees 3 and 4, come on officially, right? And when I say employees, I mean they actually start getting paid something.
Yeah, all that stuff, all the videos that I was doing before that were unpaid.
Yeah, and at the time, you and Tim were both working in the store, not getting paid, me as well, and Robert, everyone not getting paid
We had,
anything.
important to note, you had the classic 6-6-12 strategy from HR there, which was, first of all,
Saturdays, yeah.
you're pretty much working all but one Saturday every month. So you're working all the week, and then you work a Saturday. And your first Saturday, I think, was the first 6 hours. Second Saturday was the last 6 hours. So we were open for 12 hours.
a day. 10 to 10.
Because why wouldn't you be? And then your third shift was all 12 hours.
Yeah.
So you were just,
Wow.
you were
but
just
then
grinding.
your fourth shift was off.
Oh my gosh. Your
2-day
fourth
weekends.
shift,
It
you
was
had
the
a
best.
2-day. It was like glory. That Friday night, whenever you didn't have, because we were all living together, so it was always one person didn't have to go in the next day, and they were just kicked up, like having a great time. got a hot and ready from Little Caesars.
That's really part of what you learn too, because we were open Mondays through every day.
And starting at lunch.
We're open from I think 2 to 10. So it was an 8-hour shift that didn't factor in the cleaning that we were necessarily going to do.
Or the
for store.
unboxings that eventually we started doing.
Yeah, and
Before
so
we
that
opened
was
shop
there, yeah.
intense.
Yeah,
that was
because then it was like on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, it was like an hour for content in the beginning. So we would go in, shoot the stuff, and then I would go
Then
up and
clean
edit
the
it while they
store.
would start cleaning the store, and then have it posted like that day or the next day. It was crazy. It was absolutely nuts.
It was really just unbearable what was happening at that point.
Yeah, we bared it.
We did bear it, and the website struggling along and subscriptions getting manhandled on a manual basis.
Yeah.
But then,
And we're making money at this point, but not much. Enough to where we can eat, but not enough to where Zach can be relaxed whatsoever.
or take time off, or you guys can turn your heat on.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true. Yeah, that's our
This
girlfriends
is
at the
struggle.
time, now wives, really didn't like coming to our house because it was either ridiculously hot because we didn't have the heater on, or ridiculously cold, and you couldn't get a hot shower because we even turned down the water heater to save money.
Yeah, not to
You
not
can do it. You can do it.
Yeah, it's kind of good for you.
We just got through it. I mean, and that's, we've talked about this a lot. We had the luxury of being able to do that.
Yes.
Like knowing that you could at any moment essentially kind of pull out and even just go to your parents and say, hey, like this didn't work out. Can I get a loan or something like? So I don't. It's not. We've talked about it a lot. It's not poverty or anything, but it was a determined effort to make it work without relying on any outside forces for help.
And I will certainly say, and this is a little bit off topic, but for me, it was enough of a taste of what poverty is like for me to really understand in a much more profound way someone who is in that situation and doesn't have the option to get out.
decision-making process
Yeah,
is
like
way
whenever I
different.
got bit by that spider, and it was like, I don't have the money to go to the doctor. Now, I could have asked our parents, and that would have been fine. But I was like, if you didn't even have that, goodness gracious, man.
Yeah,
It's really terrifying.
Well, and I think this
But
ultimately.
it was scrapping.
It was
it was
scrapping.
100% startup scrapping. I hear about Zucks and all these guys, and it's like, oh man, I kind of get that. Like, I definitely, you hear these like stories about people working in garages and whatnot, and it's like, man, I definitely feel like that part of the story I can connect to, because we were
scrappy, and we had to be.
it was years.
And I think, it's interesting because, like, we were willing to be, I think, is we all had like educations and could have been doing a million other things, but we're choosing to do this because we did believe in what we were doing ultimately.
That's the power of actually believing in what you're doing.
Yeah,
I think also that's one of the reasons why some of our early meetings as to what Covenant is were so intense, is because we were all just hungry. Like not in like the we're hungry to do great things. Like we just hadn't eaten. We were eating rice and eggs, man.
And like at the time, right? It's like I was also working to help fund the engine, and then working in the store after.
Took no paycheck, by the way.
You were putting money in.
I was anti taking paychecks, right? Which is just putting it all on the line. But this leads to kind of the next part of the story, which is the breath of fresh air that happened. So we launched during that 2013 year, we launched Covenant templates, which are now squad templates, and Force tokens compatible with Star Wars LCG,
which are now discontinued.
Yeah, there's you can't get, but
they were L's.
Also earlier that year, I had been working on designs, very bad designs for data tokens early, and I remember showing them to you guys, and you guys were both just like.
Can I just go on record as saying that the Force tokens are the only of our tokens that I didn't design?
You can say whatever you want.
You designed that. And the templates, the original templates,
I
right?
I think
the templates were cut at the Fab Lab by Derek.
Yeah.
The focus. Yeah, not the Death Star.
I did the L's.
Yeah, you did the L's.
Because
we'll put damage on it so that people know there's damage.
Yeah. That's right.
Write the word on it, and then there's no confusion.
Everybody knows.
But I had those prototypes, and I remember you guys saying no. And you've been hired that year, right?
Yes.
And so you were like, I can do better. And it wasn't just like, hey, you're the designer. You should design it. You guys just decided to do it. And you designed data tokens, and we put those out in November. And I remember we put them up, and it was like shipping before Christmas, right? It's a pre-order because we didn't want to stock them. We didn't have the money to like have inventory, right? It was like whatever. And we started selling them, and I remember the next day having to shift it to say shipping in January because we'd sold so many. And then a week later,
it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was like
we were like jumping around. We were so excited about it. We couldn't believe that it was selling.
And so by the end of the week, we had to have shipping in February, and then a couple weeks later, shipping in March, and just had to keep kicking it down the can because we were selling so many of these.
It was awesome.
And I remember like a week after we'd started selling them was like the first time I had slept really well in a while, right? Because
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, it wasn't like, well, how are we going to... At that point, every month, it's like, all right, how are we going to make sure enough money is coming in this month to make it, and this month to make it? And it wasn't about... It was just like, are we going to make it? Was the question that kept kind of being tossed around. So data tokens show up, and that was really a game changer because that gave us really the funding mechanism to do the next leg of the race, which is we have a website that's being overloaded from the X-Wing players posting too much content, which is great. We have the Netrunner people signing up for subscriptions.
We have an old Magento store.
We have an old store.
Oh, Magento.
And it was one misclick away from dying at any moment.
Yeah.
You click the wrong button and it's done.
We lose all the blogs, all the content.
It was like trying to get into Zach's old car.
That's right. And there's a reason, this is my point, that I'm still in the old car is because all my money is going to the Covenant to keep us afloat and to keep being able to not pay people.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, this leads us into another funny moment, and I don't know why I did this every time, but it's like, all right, we have money, so naturally the thing we should do is bring on someone else that we can't afford to pay.
Just another mouth to feed.
So that's when we hired Ben, and we started training him on, at the time, it wasn't, he's right here. At the time, and by the way, I'm sorry, this episode's going long. I'm going long.
I think we should,
history of Covenant.
Yeah.
So I'm
just got to embrace it, lean into it.
And, if you want to skip ahead to the Ask Covenant question at the end, you can. But
we'll have time codes down at the bottom.
But so we brought on Ben, and he was doing some spreadsheet manual entry of cards for
data entry is what he was hired for.
So that our Thrones gameplay videos could be done more effectively.
Because originally a gameplay video took me about a month, honestly, and then it got down to 3 weeks, and then 2 weeks, and then I had it down to like 4 hours whenever I handed it off to Ben.
Now, there are two things that need to be mentioned here before we go any further. One is that the entire token thing came out of one of the people who was coming into our store, Derek, who's a good friend, and we got to know him, and he was playing spoils.
Well, he kept showing up with stuff.
And he's a tinkerer.
Yeah.
That's what Derek is. And so he went to the Fab Lab in Tulsa, which is where you can basically go in and use this big equipment that normal people can't afford. And he would bring stuff out, and he would be like, "Look, I made this little thing for this game,
like the house cards
thing
that have
lit up.
Yeah,
lit up."
And Zach was like, "Whoa, wait, there's potential. This is a funding. This is a revenue mechanism."
He came in one night, and he was like, "Man, he was going to school for something political."
Yeah, like political science or something like that. Yeah.
And he was like, he owned his house. He worked in finance for a while before that.
Really enjoyed working.
And
in
he
a
was like, I
jewelry
just
store
want to make stuff,
before then.
and I want to make enough money. And at the time, right, like I'm at this point really bought in and believing that you can do anything, even though I'm 5 years into a company and making no money and losing money on it. But really believe, right, that it's worth chasing what you believe in and what you're passionate about. And he comes in and he's like, I want to make stuff, and he's needed to make barely any money. And I was like, well, I know how to make barely any money.
Let me tell you.
So we were in front of someone was playing X-Wing, and I was like, can you make these in acrylic, the templates? And he was like, yeah, I can do that. And he came back a week later with some clear templates, and I was like, I can sell it.
Yeah.
It's like, I know we can sell it, but yeah, go ahead.
And so much of that, so it was Force tokens, and he was making prototypes at the Fab Lab. Eventually kind of got like
They said,
talk from the Fab Lab. It's like, you can't do production level stuff in here. And so then he, we work on taking a risk out, and he buys his little laser, and then we start a little production. But it's also, Derek had a good sense of quality and was very much wanting to do good work.
That is very true.
Which is hard to find in anybody in the world. And so those early data tokens and stuff, they turned out great because he was very just meticulous about the quality. And so we were like, oh, this is definitely going to work, because that's the kind of brand that we ultimately knew we wanted to deliver every time quality.
Yeah.
And so then Derek was doing that with his prototypes.
Yeah, Derek would not give us a token that looked bad, or if there was something wrong with it, he'd toss it if it was uncentered or something.
It's not even necessarily, I think that it is quality, but really when you get to the root of it, it's because we cared, right? We just wanted to
It goes back to that early
it.
thing. We don't want people to feel exploited,
Yeah, and so when you get our tokens,
money.
right, we wanted you to feel like we put thought into it and cared.
And then on the other end of this, we open our doors, and some of the first people in the store are Ben and his friend Sam, because they had gotten into the spoils, I think, and then they were like, "Whoa, there's a store local."
Well, they
the
bought
spoils.
that 2-player starter.
Yeah.
The spoils that had come out.
Well,
and kind of getting into it.
This is actually, I think, it's interesting because at the time Ben was collecting dead games, which I
Right.
think is a really interesting thing to do, because you can just buy everything, you have it all, and then bada bing, bada boom. And so he came in. for
Usually
the
pretty
spoils.
cheap, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's like, whoa, there's spoils, actual things happening, and so it comes in. So that's how we meet Ben, and then over
just like,
time,
"I
then
want
it's
a
like,
job."
this seems like a young go-getter, and so do you want to enter
he was.
into some spreadsheets, some data? And he's like, sure.
and then slowly just kept building up.
Yeah, and now an
that's
incredible
what
video editor,
2014 kind
which
of
is
was
pretty
just
cool.
for us in general.
And producer, et cetera.
Data tokens went well at the end of 2013, so we eventually catch up to that and make enough to get those all shipped.
You remember that conversation?
Oh yeah, we did
it
the
was like-
math, and it was like,
Let's say we're selling 60, and we are making 50 every month, and we're selling 60 every month.
well, we were literally selling every week. We produce a week, as much as we could in a week, and we were selling 2 more weeks worth.
Yeah.
So every
yeah.
week we were adding another week to how long it would take us to fulfill.
And it's like, well, wait a minute, hold on.
We're never going to
We
catch
can't do this
up
forever.
Yeah, it's like we need more lasers. And so 2014 we catch up, and really across the board, unboxings, gameplay videos, and tokens. We just we go from doing it to doing it well.
Yep.
Two strings and recurrings, divided range rulers.
I started.
Conquest came out.
I started
War
getting a
tokens, which
system.
ran.
Well,
Well, we
I was trying to push the envelope maybe a little bit too
that's
far.
what we did. Holiday tokens for the first time, and we just kind of kept. We put out a lot of tokens. We put out a lot of
became a
videos.
token company at that point in a lot of ways.
And subscriptions. We're also turning along. And this
were,
is when
were we still on PayPal?
we were still on PayPal, but this is where we started the process of, we recognized we need a new website.
Yeah.
This is not sustainable. It's not scalable. We're getting hammered. Like we were having so many troubles throughout all of this
Luckily,
time.
we had the money to hire the best in the business.
No, we got hosed multiple times.
Well,
it was
it's 'cause
literally
we
like they shook us by our ankles and ran out of town before we could do anything
Well, and what
about
would
it.
happen is everyone would be like, we can do this. Here's the quote. They get 90% done, and then it would be all the easy stuff. And then the 10% that was really hard because we had this old infrastructure with all this data we needed.
Yeah,
and all
and a
this.
lot of and to Philip's credit, he didn't know anything about WordPress, and he hacked the heck out of it.
Yeah, Philip did incredible
But it was
work.
kind of very hard to unhack to get it.
He wasn't the main hack.
No,
he was not
That
the
was
main
the
hack.
ankle shakers.
Yeah.
right
Philip
there.
did great.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
he did good stuff.
It was hacked. So,
But and we had this problem too of we were both needed a web store and we had this community element going, and there wasn't really a solution for that.
Yes.
That was the problem. We were trying to hack this together for so long.
WordPress and Magento, trying to get them to talk to each other.
not
But we
gonna
had a lot
happen.
of people who would get most of the way done, and then it'd be like, "This is way harder than we thought. And it's going to be triple the price." And
Peace
then it's
out.
like, we can't afford triple the price. You should have told us this at the start. And it was just this whole
But you're not going to
quagmire.
refund us because you already did the work. So here we are with an unfinished nothing, and
So-
we're out.
so demoralizing.
A lot of struggle through that. So then we
Which actually, it's kind of sorry to interrupt.
You're
but
good.
It's kind of fun to note that the design for the new website, the one that we tried to get for so long, Steven actually designed. So it was Steven's design
Photoshop,
in a fever dream. Like
Well, I was homesick.
He was homesick.
Coming back to the
on
beginning
his,
of the
on his
podcast.
computer, just like in the midst of a fever, and it designed
Looked
this
pretty
whole-
okay.
It looked really good. Yeah.
I mean, as long as it
lot
was
of
seen
mock.
on one
Yeah.
screen size with no actual inputs happening, it looked pretty
and
good.
of course the web is 2008 is when iPhone started coming around. So the whole web is starting to change. That
Responsive
point.
design
Now
is
it's
a
changed
new
a lot.
thing.
But heading into 2015, right? So a lot of things are happening. Web projects happening.
Looking great.
We launched squad tokens for the. I don't know why it took us so long to put out X-Wing tokens, or X-Wing
And
compatible.
we're
tokens.
actually growing at this point pretty well. Like kind of exponentially, things are going up.
We've continued growing the whole time.
Yeah, like it's looking pretty good. We might
kind of
see
around
daylight.
some corners. People aren't just making peanuts anymore. But then we moved to the new store. Things are looking pretty solid.
yeah,
like
that
things are
was-
going well.
Oh, the one here. This
Yeah,
one.
this store here,
This is
2015.
crazy. Feels like 1,000
and
years
then
ago.
we finally have our big web launch, big web update, and man, it was a catastrophe. It went wrong 9 ways to
It
Sunday.
was compromised every time. Like at
Yeah.
every turn, everything was just like, okay, I guess. Okay, I guess. Okay,
Yeah,
I
so the
guess.
deal was like we finally get with one of these companies and they say, hey, well, look, it is harder than we thought. And Zach's like, look, this can't happen again. We got to get it done. And they're like, actually, now that you mention it, we can get it done by Tuesday. And he's like, yeah, we'll do that option. Little did he know that meant that none of it would work.
Yeah, so it was bad. We went into kind of emergency mode. I mean, revenue went in half like overnight.
No, that's because
basically.
no one could check out.
Yeah, it was
Literally, the
was
store
bad.
stopped
Possible.
working.
Yeah, so it was bad. So we had a hot fix that cost us even more money. And then, we go to Gen Con when Ashes came out, which is cool. I love that box. But then the unthinkable happened, which is there was this 5-month period. We invested, and finally, like we got the hot fix on the website so people could check out. Things were fine again.
Luckily, we had subscriptions going.
Subscriptions were going, tokens were going, but then it's when the FFG Asmodee merger was happening, and I don't know what all was going
That was
on.
in 2015?
Yeah. And they just decided to not put out packs for any of their games for 5 months, which we had just invested a lot of money around a subscription service that could more conveniently sign people up and serve these very products.
So we had a non-PayPal system at this point.
So we moved from PayPal, which is a big deal. We had a community site that wasn't just like, and there was a lot of functionality that we lost, unfortunately, in the community side of things.
Yeah, it
but
was
at the
bad.
same time, we had a website that wasn't just going to tip over and could handle the traffic that we were having at that point from the community and everything that was going on. But that was also just kind of a weird, rough season.
Yeah.
So we leaned even heavier into the token products at that point, right?
right.
So we did subscription tokens. We did the Lotus token for Netrunner and various other ones for the various games. We launched command tokens for Imperial Assault. We launched banner tokens for
Our
Thrones.
first wooden tokens, I believe.
They
The
were.
very tail end there, we did the Awakens. I remember
And
doing
then-
that before Christmas.
And then
for
I remember
Christmas.
that October, out of the prototyping machine came the Awakened Navy templates.
yeah.
And I was dancing around.
Yeah, you
just
were
as an
freaking
extra
out.
player. The black and red templates were just magical.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and they still are. I think they are still some of our
thank
best
you.
design things we've ever done. But that's really when, 2015 was also personally a rough year for me, as a side note. And so it was just kind of like all the crap hit the fan.
Yeah.
As a company internally,
That was the worst
some
year.
struggles.
That was the
We
worst year,
didn't know
100%.
if we were going to make it.
That was because we thought 2014 went pretty well. 2015 beginning went pretty well, and it felt like we had turned the corner.
Yeah.
After all the struggles, it's
Smooth
like all right, we
sailing,
made
woo!
it, and then the web launch just punched us in the face.
Yeah.
And then, and not to be discounted, command tokens. We didn't have another data token.
Yeah, nothing
experience.
ever-
Command tokens were kind of like, okay. Banner tokens, okay. The Awakened Navy and Awakened Alliance is when we actually started to
That-
see like,
so
we've
And
hit
that was
something.
that was
here.
the month that Force Awakens came out.
Yeah.
And so those products were very successful, and that was really, I think, when the next leaf turned.
Yeah.
So then we had to 2016. We keep on the X-Wing train. We launched the Asteroid and Debris. We launched the munitions tokens. We hosted Ashes Weekend that
That was
year,
a lot of fun.
which is fun. Plaid Hat came up here. And then we had another web update.
Much better this time.
Which was way better. This is when we got onto a better server. Subscriptions were stable.
We found someone who knew what they were doing.
We took no chances in that. I've finally just had enough, and it took months and months and months. But it's get the best host possible and just do it.
Yeah.
Just get the
You
best
can't
host.
afford
Just
to do it
believe
halfway
that
anymore.
investing in something being actually really good will pay off over time.
And be in a position to invest in that. That was the other. I mean, back in 2010, you just had
what do you do?
Use what you've got, kind of a thing.
And there were some investments along the way too. You know, like friends and family be like, "Oh, we'll give you a bond," that kind of stuff. So there's some other financial sides of this too. If you're interested in like running a business, that stuff happens too. It's like you need to get money.
Yeah.
And what do you offer? We didn't want to offer shares of the company.
We actually took out. It was the year that that everything went bad. We were celebrating one night because we got was it a $20,000
some kind of a
something like that
loan,
a loan, and that we thought was going to
that was actually 2014.
It was
that's what we were using
to pay the web, which didn't work.
We thought it was going to push us forward, but we had to use all of that money to recover.
That's what ended up happening. We got the money, and then instead of it being pushing forward, it was the recovery.
Yeah. And it was a big deal because we were a small scrappy company, didn't have great numbers. We finally secured this loan, everything was going to be great, and then we just had to use it to stay afloat, basically. But
and
now
then
we're
keep paying
debt.
it off.
Yeah. So 2016, other important things that happened really was that's the August that Destiny got announced. Check that out. That's when we did like an intro series to Destiny, which is a real early version of a learning series, right?
Yeah.
We did
the all-in
hands-up gameplay video. But we did Saga tokens. Those did really well. We did Saga sets. And the reception to that was just amazing for us. And that was kind of its own process. But that leads us to 2017, which is last year.
Was that the new subscription platform too? 2016? That's when we officially got on. Everything was on our website in a single CMS, in a single WordPress
2015,
environment.
if you remember, it was through our website, through the custom system we had built. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that
side
system.
thing.
Yeah.
But then 2016 is when we got it to really be integrated into the website.
Yeah,
really integrated with it. But then 2017 for us, at the time, we kind of just found things that were good and that were working, and we did a lot of that, right? Unboxing, gameplay videos, token launches, subscription tokens. And 2017 for us was really a year of focusing our efforts. And
2016 was a year of questioning too.
2016
that was when
questions.
we were tearing each other apart on what the whole purpose of the enterprise was, and I think we had some PTSD from 2015 too, where it was
2015, we had to have some real serious conversations.
Because again, you thought you turned the corner, and then it's struggle again.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, we need to figure this out real quick.
I mean, at this point, someone like me is looking at this, and I've been in this enterprise for 8 years now, and then all of a sudden the rug disappears. It seems like it's building. Hey, this is actually going somewhere, and then all of a sudden, is it? Is this all a dream? Has this all been? And so
is it all just a waste of time?
Yeah.
But
so
I mean,
we
at
really
that
to talk
point,
about it.
It's really when, and I think 2016 is what we figured out, which is we really have to know why we're doing this. We know we believe that we can change this industry and make it better, and that people will benefit from it, and we can make the world a better place.
And we know there's something important about this industry.
Yeah,
truly important.
But we really had to answer the question, why are we all here? Right? What's worth all of this? So 2017 is a response to that, right? Which is we started understanding that we believe tabletop games create amazing, profound human connection, better than anything else that we've ever experienced ourselves. We believe that a lot more people could be experiencing it if only it were easier to get involved
so hard.
in tabletop games.
so
Whether it's
weirdly
the story
hard.
of the tournament I went to where the cat jumps on it, or just even understanding a game like Destiny or Legend of the Five Rings and the communities that surround it, and just learning it. So we realized that our goal, our whole point of existing, is to make it as easy as possible to get involved and stay involved in these games. And the games will take care of the rest.
Yeah.
Right? They will create the connection.
Games are great.
And so 2017, right, we launched the Covenant cast last year as a response to that, because we just want to have...
That's a long time been project too. You pitched that in 2016,
Yeah,
maybe
we're rah,
Well,
harump.
it took a while.
No, he was right. I'll give him, put a feather in his cap on
We
that
launched the Learning Series for the first time, which was completely geared around making it easy to get into L5R and then Netrunner, and now we're working on Destiny and Arkham. We launched Mythos boards, which were literally designed to help make that easier. We overhauled our site, again, trying to make it easier. And
I learned how to build a website.
we learned how to be a
We
designer.
basically said, hey, we've had enough of these charlatans, just third-party people taking all of your money and giving you a subpar product. It's kind of like the Amazon model. I think they always take things in-house, but it's like the only way to guarantee that something is done to the standard that you want it done is you have to have full control over it. you can't. So we just cut ties with all those third parties, and we're like, we'll just learn it. Google search at a time.
Yeah.
Luckily, you're very good at that.
Thank you.
So going from designing, video effects and products and tokens to a website is a different experience.
It's crazy, man. I will tell you a personal story. Like in the early days of 2017, which is when I was tasked with learning how to build a website. So I was still reeling from the PTSD of 2015, thinking, well, that was a bad design. I mean, it wasn't. There was more of it than that, obviously. But it's like I was really worried that like I would take a misstep and I would not see something correctly, and I would design the site badly, and we would be back in the trouble. I woke up. There's a couple of days I woke up still in fight or flight mode because I was so stressed from having to learn this in such a short period of time. Now I've been through it, and it's great. But for
You're
a while,
on Hero's journey.
Yeah, I think I talked.
Well,
about
you keep telling us you like doing that stuff.
I love
we'll
doing it.
continue
No, I
stressing
love
you out.
I love doing it. It's just it's worth noting.
Just kidding.
So yeah, so that was the big thing for me in 2017 is getting the site, and there's still plenty to do on the site. Obviously.
But yeah, and that really leads us to where we're at now, which is we're continually I've been seeing you work on it, but making the site even easier. We're making the learning series even easier, and so our whole goal at this point is really challenging ourselves and asking the question: how easy can we make everything?
Yeah.
From getting into to buying to keeping up with the game. And so that's what you're going to keep seeing out of us as we move forward. Like our whole goal is not just to care, right, and make the whole industry better, but we're trying to make it as easy as possible. Yeah. And as we've talked about, like we won't eat for this. we will
turn
work all day
for
this.
For this.
And so it's cool to have someone ask a kind of question, want to hear the story. And there's a lot of you that are listening that have encouraged us along the way and left awesome comments, and so that believe what we believe, right? Which is how great these games
and that's
are.
Been really helpful. All the positive comments, honestly, to know that we're going in the right direction. To hear stuff that we talk about behind closed doors here, then repeated, people see it in how we handle ourselves or how we put the videos we choose to do. That we are trying to do that, and the fact that that's translating so well, it's very, very.
We just want to be walking the walk, honestly. There's nothing I hate more than somebody who talks a big game and then they just do the same stuff or don't do anything at all in line with what they're saying. So it's good to see that even without directly saying it, we can get feedback that's like, this was very helpful and it made it easier to get in the game. And it's like, yes, that's exactly what it was.
We got that a lot on the learning series, which is
learning
people
series
saying
has been amazing.
The exact thing. It's like, this is why we did it. We literally made this video so that it would be easier for you to learn Netrunner, so you could get in this community. And when someone comments and says, oh my gosh, I learned how to play Netrunner because of this, and I got in. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And now I have these memories
and these road
trips
so deeply to why we're here in the first place, which is awesome.
And don't forget, we hired Ryan. This is all fairly recently. Ryan and then Grant.
Yeah.
I didn't.
They were on the list. I didn't call it out. Which is we brought Ryan on in 2015 during the summer. So I worked the Sundays in the store from 2012 until he got hired. And that's when I first started having 2 days off in a row, which was great. And I remember the first couple of months, I was just like, what do I do with 2 days? Like, what do I do with my time? And then Grant recently coming on, really strong. He works in our store now, so if you visit us around the time of this video, you'll probably see him a lot, him and Ryan. But yeah, anything else that we missed? It's worth mentioning before I ask my question.
Probably a whole bunch. We could take each year and make it its own podcast, honestly.
Well, that really ties in.
I don't want to sound, and I don't know. I hope this doesn't come across as too like
aggrandizing?
Aggrandizing, yeah, like self-interested. I don't. That's certainly not the intent, but it does excite us to talk about it being, especially seemingly on the other side of what were some very dark and troubling and difficult times. To be able to talk about that with joy and having overcome it is, hopefully it doesn't come across the wrong way.
And we still have plenty of journey to go on, and that'll have its own, you know, problems.
I feel like we're just getting started, man. Well, really, honestly.
I mean, the interesting thing, like you said, being fortunate enough to be in a position to do what you were doing, I feel that, like, there was no part of me during any of that process, even when it's like, oh, I have to work Sundays, like, feel bad for me. It was like, no, I loved working Sundays. I chose this. This whole thing, and I would do it all over again, right? And that's pretty cool to say when you know how difficult something was, and yet you would, even just all the people that come up to us from our conventions and thank us for getting them into this game or this video that we did, really makes all of that effort and sacrifice worth something. And so to have someone ask to want to hear our story, if you're still watching and listening to this, that's humbling. It really is humbling, and it's an honor. And like I said, for us, we're just going to keep doing everything we can to make it as easy as possible, because we want as many people experiencing these these human connections that we love as possible.
And I hope that people listening who are interested in doing any pursuit that is, even remotely difficult can understand that, we're dealing with 10 years of lots of failures and trouble. And we're only now maybe finding our way to something that makes sense to us and that we're happy with and proud of. So it's not like most things where it just can happen in a couple of days or a couple of months. And you hear these stories about startups where it's like, we got these angel investors and funding and this thing blew up and we got bought for $1 billion the next, year. The vast majority, I think, of small businesses that eventually succeed and become something is just a lot of going for it and flailing and struggling and so much wasted time. Oh my gosh. If you could take all of the wasted time that we have spent over the past 11 years and invest it in what we chose right now, I think we'd be $1 billion company.
Well, it's sort of like if you went back to the Monpok tutorial and cut out all the ums, so all the mistakes that happened along the way. I think our whole history would be 1 to 2 years, right? But we had to go through 9 or 10 years of learning, of doing the wrong thing to get to the point where we are now. And that's kind of the catch-22 of looking back. It's like, here's all the places that we made mistakes or wasted time, but we learned that was a waste of time or a mistake, and that's really valuable.
And we also learned that none of us were willing to quit, and I think as a company that's been a really big thing that we can all rely on. It's like knowing that we're all here for the long run, and it is going to be a long run.
There's no quit. We're going to keep fighting. So as we always end the show with a question, you can use the hashtag AskCovenant. We might do a whole episode of several hours.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening. That was a long one.
Everything.
Thanks for all the support over the year. I mean, 11 years is crazy. And there's some people who've been here from probably day one.
Which is fascinating.
Well, at least year 2.
I bet you there's some Spoils players from back in the day.
There's some people who got in on the Saga trade. That are still here?
Oh man, I don't think so. I think that community is long abandoned.
Anyways, you can use the hashtag AskCovenant. We love to answer your questions right here on the show. And we always like to ask you a question to leave it in the comments below. And I would very much appreciate knowing, what was your first experience with Covenant? When did it happen? What was it? How was it? And what was your impression of us at the time? Thank you all for listening. Until next time, keep playing.